All right, so we have one, two, three, four Hitachi guns. Okay, so we have four broken nail guns. For some reason, what's been happening is that the drivers on them have been breaking. At first, we thought we were doing something wrong at the job site, maybe not having enough oil in them, forgetting to oil them in the morning. But I don't think that's the case because we started oiling all the guns after the first one broke. All the guys are trained to make sure that that's the first thing they do when they roll them out. But even then, it kept happening. So then we thought it was the temperature because this started happening around December, and we're here in Portland mainly. Most of our work is in the Portland area, and I mean, it doesn't get that cold. It gets cold in the winter, but not like other parts of the U.S. But we thought it was that, and then we also thought, what if it's the pressure on the line? But no, we kept it a standard between 100 and 120 psi, so I don't think it's that. And then it wasn't just one brand of nail gun. We have two Hitachis that broke, framing nailers. We have what is now Metabo. It's still a Hitachi, but they just switched the name. Everything is the same. It looks a little different. It doesn't say Hitachi on them, but same thing happened. And then we have those Hitachis that aren't like the originals. They're I don't know how to describe them. They look like a little more plastic. I remember buying them at Lowe's. They're the only ones that carried them around here. I mean, if you are familiar with framing nail guns, you know what I'm talking about when I say they kind of look a little more plasticky, and they're not like the Hitachi where you can pull the the sliding thing back, and it clicks to hold at the end of the rail, and then you load the nails from the top, and then you release that, and it pushes the nails down the track as you're firing. But instead, this is one of those where you load, like the other nail guns, like the DeWalt or like Max, where you load the strip through the back, throw a couple of racks in there, and then you have to pull the slider over the nails and then put it behind the last rack. It's not like that. I mean, it is like that, but it's a Hitachi or Metabo nail gun. So what we did is we're trying to figure out why they're breaking. If you have an idea, if you have the same thing happening to you, let me know. Send me a comment on the video, or message me. I'm really curious to find out what's going on because, like I said, I don't think it's weather related. I don't think it's the air pressure. I don't think it's because we're not having enough oil in there. Like I said, we're trying to keep it oiled, and we are not. For those that are thinking, well, maybe you're putting too much oil. I don't think there's. I mean, there could be such a thing as putting too much oil, but we're not putting like squirting a whole ton of oil in there. So, I mean, you would see that when the nails are firing. But here's a culprit. So I pulled this nail gun apart, and this is the driver. So when you shoot a nail, this goes down the cylinder and comes out through the track, and then drives the nail, and then it retracts back into the chamber. As you can see, this broke off right there. You can see that it broke off right there. And then the other piece, I don't have it anymore. It's somewhere on the job site now. It's probably been buried. So this is supposed to be longer, and then once that breaks, now you don't have that length to drive any more nails. So I'm thinking that it's got to be this. It's got to be this part that, I don't know if it's the material they're using, whoever's manufacturing these, but something is causing this metal to break on all the guns. And it's interesting that all the guns have the same problem. It's the driver. At first, when I said weather related, I thought it was because the weather had something to do with the maybe what was happening within the environment had an impact on the metal itself. But the last gun broke not too long ago, and we are in March. What happened in March? We're in April now, and in March here it wasn't that cold. I mean, I was out there with just a sweater. It was raining a lot, but I don't think that had to do anything. I've been framing for a long time, about 10 years, 15 off and on if you count that. And I used to have a nail gun that this ended up happening the same thing. But that we know why that happened. That's a whole nother story, which I'm not going to get into. But I'll tell you one of these days. But that old Hitachi I had for 10 years and never broke. The driver never broke. Same conditions, framing, same environment, same temperatures, all throughout different seasons, never broke. And then it finally broke, but not because of the reason why these broke. That broke. I know why that one broke, which, like I said, it's a whole different story. So let me know if you had this issue. I think it's this metal, the metal they're using nowadays. I think it's brittle, if that's a word, to describe it. It's got to be that. I don't see it being anything else. And the thing is, they all break right here around where this groove starts. You probably can't see it. There's like a V-shaped groove that starts right there. And it happens to break, not all of them, but I would say half of them right there. So we ordered a new part, and my brother brought it over. So this is the new driver that's going to go in there. As you can see, the difference in length right there, it's substantial. Look at that. It's a good 1.75 inches, maybe almost 2 difference. And then here on this one, you can see the V groove that I'm talking about on there, right here. Go down, and then it creates a groove right there, a V-shaped groove. As you can see, the profile on that, it's not round. That profile is not round. It kind of makes like a U shape. But then as it goes down this line, that's where it makes that groove. And right about here, that U void fills in. And that's where it broke, right there. So that's what I'm thinking, that there's a weak spot in there. My brother got this one, so I don't know where he got it from. It's a replacement part. I don't know if I don't think it came from the same manufacturer that made the gun. I think it's just a replacement part. So hopefully this metal will hold up better than this one, than what this did. But if this was from the manufacturer, then I don't expect this to beat this. And if it does, then there's something seriously wrong with the way they're making these. So the gun, let's take a look at the gun. So I took the gun apart. This is what it looks like right now. This is an actual newer Hitachi. When I say newer, is before they switched to and rebranded to a different name. So this was still branded as a Hitachi. And the other ones just have a different name, but everything else is the same. All the parts are interchangeable. You can use parts from the older guns to this gun, and probably from this gun to the rebranded name one. So I took this one apart. The first time I ever took a Hitachi apart to fix something in there, I made the mistake of doing this. When I took the track off, this part that you probably can't see that. On this part right here is what pushes the nails down the rail. So when you want to reload, you pull that back, click it in place. Most of you that are familiar with this are wondering why I'm explaining this. Well, you know what this is, but for those that are beginners or just had this problem and want to take this gun apart, I'm kind of explaining this for them. So it clicks on there, you load the nails, and then you release this, pushes the nails as you're driving them all the way to the end. So the first mistake that I made, which was really hard to put back together, is this. There's a coil in there. This is the coil that's in there, and it pretty much wraps around this, and it's a little wheel. So when you extend it, it extends that coil, that wheel coil. I don't know the correct technical name for it. So what I did when I pulled the gun apart, I pulled that nut off, which this is connected to that. So when I pull that off, it quickly, that tension pulled it back. I released all that pressure that's there, and the coil went back and rolled up in here. It almost hurt my finger when I did that, so be careful. This time around, I left that in there, so I don't have to try to put it back together when I put the rail back onto the gun. So here's how I took it apart. One, this is how the gun goes back together. So the first step, and you can do this in this order or whatever order you want. The only order that's important is this first one. The first thing you have to take apart is this part that goes here, that adjusts the depth. If you have a gun that has a depth adjuster, you want to take that off first. Oh wait, pause the video because the pizza's here. Let's go talk to the pizza man. Hello.
Yeah, oh, here. She's not.
Hi, how much is it?
21.27.
25. Thank you. No. Thank you. She's fine. Put on. Alright, here's the pizza kids. I'm gonna go finish my video.
You're right there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, I get 4 slices.
Alright, sorry about that, guys. Had to get pizza for the kids because I can't cook.
4 pieces.
No, you can eat some of Caleb's. So as I was saying, first thing you want to do is take that depth adjuster off, because if you don't, and then you take these 4 screws off to try to take the rail off, it's going to be in your way. You won't be able to get it off. So you take that off first, and then you can take the rail off or the back cap off, whatever order you want. But for sure, this is the first thing you want to take off. After you take that off, and then you take these 4 corners off, then you want to take off this piece right here that attaches to the if there is a sky hook on it to hook onto rafters or something else, you want to take that one off, and then you slide it over and you pull it apart. The only tricky part about this is to try to get this pin off from that, and that'll enable you to pull it off to the side. So yeah, first step is that. The rest, however you want to do it. The back end, this is the back end to it. This one is on like this. So this one, you just pull the 4 nuts, the bolts or nuts that are on there, and then you just pull it apart. That's it. And then this old one was in, it goes in there like that. This is what the driver will go do this motion as it drives the nails in this chamber. Now I forgot to mention, if you have a piece of metal, let's say the width of this, that's long, then you don't have to take all this apart. Why? Well, because the only reason you need to take this apart is if you don't have something long enough. Because at first I was using the old driver that was broken. I was throwing it in here, and then with this I was trying to push the old one out of the chamber. But I didn't have something long enough. So you have something that'll fit through this hole. Then you do not have to take this off. Because then all you do is you get a piece of metal, you stick it in here, and then you drive that driver out this way. So as long as you have something long enough, you'll be able to push this out of here. Now, here's the tricky part to that. That will work only if this old one that's in there has not moved in any position. If it is exactly true straight, where this other end of the driver is still in line with the center of that hole. Because if it's just a little bit off, just a little bit off center from that hole, then there's no way you're going to be able to push something in there to drive this out, because you'll be going into a void. Now, again, I'm not going to say it's completely impossible, because you could get a really long rod, and then that long rod will end up making contact with this, and then you'll be able to push it out. But that you would need something really long, because you have to go from here to here, and then that extra bit of the rail, about 10 inches, a foot maybe. And then you can do it that way. Keep in mind, if you do that, if you don't want to make contact with the tip of this because it's not in line, then you're going to have to take multiple times to try to get that piece that you're using to make contact with this. It's going to be really hard, because you would have to get some thinner than the driver, and that's because you only have that one hole through the rail where you're driving something through. At some point, it's going to go down the center, and there's no way you can bend it to try to go around it to hit that. So I recommend just trying it, and hopefully you're lucky and that old one is still centered. You can just knock it out. Or if you could just somehow pull it out without having to take all this apart, then it's fine. I took it apart for two reasons. One, to show you how you can do it if that fails, and also to give you an idea of how to take this apart, or how it looks after you take it apart. So now that we've taken it apart, we're going to put it back together. And to put it back together, it's easy. You just put the new one in through that hole. As you can see, that's already showing right there. Yeah, if I move it right there, it's already aligned through there. So you throw that in there, you put everything back together, and once you fill it with air, it does its thing. It'll go in and out. If for some reason it just comes down and stays down, just shoot a couple blanks and it should pop back up. If it stays down, that's a whole different video. I'm going to show you why that happens. That could be something with the bumper inside. This is called the bumper. It's a really thick piece of what I call plastic. I don't know exactly what kind of material it is. So yeah, that's how you do it. So we're going to put everything back together, and then we'll get a little compressor and try it out and see if it works. Like I said, if you had this happen where you have these drivers breaking and you might have an idea why, let me know. Thanks.